Hey, Grow Group leaders, I'm back and I'm in a different location. I'm in my house right now, and I want to give you some perspective on the book of Amos. Sad thing is, we won't finish it together as a Grow Group, but we will begin it, and it'll be really cool to even just tie some loose ends. This week you were in Amos 1:1 through 2:16, and basically Amos is giving a onslaught of judgments. A couple things you need to know about Amos. Amos is the only minor prophet who tells us what his profession is. That's something I learned today. He tells us that he is a shepherd. So think about that. A prophet who is a shepherd who lives in Judah. That's where his territory is, and he is proclaiming a message to God's people. Jesus, from the tribe of Judah, a shepherd of his own, because he is the good shepherd and he is coming to his people to bring them a message. And in fact, he was the message. He is the word. So pretty incredible to think about that and how God ties that in so well. Just something to think on. You're going to see basically his judgment against 7 nations, I think, that I've counted. And then basically all of them have their faults. You're going to see a bunch of different ones. Some of the ones that I outlined were basically hatred. And you could go through all of these and really simplify them down. I hope that you do that, because you're going to see a lot of things like where one of them is broken treaties, no leadership, people being sold into slavery. Now, none of our students can identify with that, because none of our students have sold someone into slavery or have done some of the heinous things that are said specifically in this text. But we can all identify with the nations in this passage, because we're all guilty of the same sins that they are, on a different scale, because we are harsh towards others. We commit injustice. We hate others for personal gain, for injustice. We are very prone to break promises. So all those things can be said. I want you to read those questions in the Grow Group Guide. All those things can help us understand and identify with the nations in this passage. And in fact, we are the nations that are being reached. We are part of the Great Commission, in that Christ called his people to go and spread the gospel to all nations. So pretty cool thing about that. But the most shocking thing is that Amos says, oh yeah, Israel, you think that your enemies are the only ones that are going to be judged? Well, guess what? It's coming to you too. And I read in the Bible Project, one of the cool things it said in the outline, it said the party's over. God's reminding his people, hey, yes, I'm going to judge the nations, but discipline's not far from you either. And the reason why Israel's people need to be disciplined is because of their greed, sexual perversion, and injustice. All very much things that God's people are guilty of and can be guilty of. So my prayer this week is that you would you explain those things to our students, and realize too that they need to be reminded of their deliverance. They need to be reminded of what they've been delivered from. You're going to have to explain a couple different things as you read the text of some places and different cities within those nations. One really cool thing that I really want to bring out is all the nations that are judged. It says that they're brought for 3 crimes, even 4. There's 2 ways you can interpret that. One is the number 3, it means totality or completeness. And then 4 is basically like putting multiplicity to it. So you could even interpret it as God's wrath is complete and it's being poured over, but even God's wrath continues to pour over, because of our sin has to be judged, and it just continually is judged based off of how much we sin. So our sin, the unending nature of our sin deserves the unending wrath of God. Or the other way you can interpret is one in the Holman Christian Standard Bible says 3 crimes, and then it says in addition to 4, so 7. You can say it's God's perfect judgment, even though it's sad that there's judgment coming, but it's God's perfect judgment. It's complete, regardless of the circumstances. And then the other thing I looked at today was if you look at Amos 2, 9 through 11, you see that God destroys his enemies for the people of Israel. God delivers his people from their enemies, and God delivers a prophet and a Nazarites, and the Nazarites were people who were devoted to God, this unbelievable devotion to God, so that they could warn God's people and also shame them to a certain extent, saying, hey, you're not very devoted. Well, who did that? Jesus is really a response to this passage, because Jesus is the one that truly destroys our enemy, Satan. Jesus is the one that delivers us from our exodus, he is the one that delivers us through our exodus and through our wilderness by the cross. And Jesus was the prophet. He was the Son of God. He was more than a prophet. He was the Son of God that God the Father brought to his people. And Christ is really more than just a Nazarite. He was truly devoted to the Father in every single way. And so we were reminded once again that all of this is fulfilled in Christ, and we can look forward to know that there is a day that's going to come when Jesus is going to come back. And I know this keeps coming back in the text, but it's something we have to come to grips with when we're seeing the minor prophets. Their warning is really the same gospel warning to us, but we see it on the other side of eternity. That's all I have for you today.